Hey, we are live and we are actually here with the Jason Hodge. The Are you the founder or the co-founder of Mastering Your Media, Jason?
I'm the founder.
I
Yeah,
knew it.
yeah,
You do so many other things, and one of the things we were talking about right before we got started is time management, and that's definitely one of the things I want to get into. But I gotta know, how did you get into mastering your media? Because you definitely know what you're doing. So how
yeah.
did you get started with mastering your media?
That actually it just kind of came about. Okay, so I've got a really good friend, Dr. Stacy NC Grant, and she is the creator of Destiny Designers University and Faithpreneur Weekend. And those who know me know that I participate in Faithpreneur Weekend faithfully, wink, every year. And so we're on year number 6. And I remember when Dr. Stacy was putting that together, she reached out to me and said, "Hey, Jason." Well, she said, "Hey, brother, I want you to come and do a panel at my Faithpreneur Weekend event." And I was like, "Okay, cool." She goes, "Okay, so what are you going to, do your training on?" I said, "I don't know, mastering your media." She goes, "I love it. Okay, let's run with it." That's how that was born. And that parlayed into, well, it started out, I was in the resource section of the training. So I would go in and I'd talk about resources, how you can use different tools online, whether they're free, low fee, subscription based, whatever. How do you use the tools and how do you maximize the tools? That was really the focal point of my training. And so then the following year, did that again and came up with a whole other slew of resources and ways to use them, how you can leverage QR codes and how you can build funnels and different platforms, how you can create trainings right inside of Facebook, whether you're inside of a group, a page, a personal profile, how you can leverage those tools. And then that ended up growing into my thinking, you know what, this needs to be something that is truly media. So I started live streaming and interviewing the who's who in their spaces. And then that turned into simulcasting on Clubhouse. And so we did one episode, and then I reached out to a good friend of mine, Harry the Big Dog Jameson. Harry, how you doing, bro? And I said, "Hey, bro, and also another friend of ours, Chris Gloss, the Possibilitarian." And then we did the first few on Clubhouse. Well, the second, I did one on Clubhouse with two other friends, and then Harry came on board, and then we've been working on Mastering Your Media since. And that now is moved into a radio broadcast where we are on the largest platforms in the space. We're listened to in over 41 countries. And I think the last check that Harry shared with me, I think was like some 1.2 million listeners. So it's
Wow.
something that just, it organically, truly organically grew. And I think the reason is because we really ask the questions that people want to know. We want to know them, and we let people really share their stories. So yeah, it's been pretty awesome.
Well, I like that. So, I read that you're really good at creating systems. I actually saw that you're really good at creating systems, and then I read it. So,
Mhm.
which one came first when it came to mastering your media? I know you got started in Time Warner, that right?
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
actually, I started a little before Time Warner. I grew up in entertainment. So my parents were executives in the music world, in the music industry. And so I grew up looking at campaigns unfolding. My mother was the vice president of publishing. So, matter of fact, a lot of things that are in use today, ways that industry and copyright application is used, is because of the work that she did back in the day. And so I grew up just being engulfed in all of that. She kept us sheltered enough so that we weren't all, totally in the mix, but we were in it enough to see what campaigns look like as they unfold. from getting the records that were all pressed on vinyls, putting them into the packages and then taking them to the mail room and mailing them out to the different outlets, to the parties where artists would come over and have like mini house concerts and whatnot. So I grew up in that, and then I ended up at Time Warner as a result of a car accident. I was not able, I was a director assistant operator for quite a few years, and I was in a car accident and was not able to return to the job that I had gotten fired from previously. I got fired from it, and they asked me to come back, and I did not want to go back to the job. I was so thankful for that car accident. And so I
It took
said,
a car accident to get you to leave?
took a car. No, it took getting fired. And I walked out of there with a smile on my face after getting fired. And the car accident was a great excuse to not go back. So I was like, yeah, well, I'm not going to be out of therapy, in time to take you up on your offer to come back. And during that time, though, a friend of mine said, hey, you know what, Time Warner is having an intern program. I think we should go. So I ended up going there, got there on the wrong day. And so then they had a producers program that I ended up going into. And then they had the intern program. And then I started working there. And, so that's kind of the trajectory of getting into entertainment. It's totally unorthodox. I didn't go to school for it per se. I just kind of fell into it.
I've always heard never bring a friend to an interview. So, and you got there on the wrong day, so it worked out for you. Did your friend also get the job?
No, and it wasn't a job. It was literally to be an intern at the studio. And so she never came back. She never, we went there the first day, it was the wrong day. So I came back the following week or two afterwards. And, I'd called her, I was like, hey, I'm heading over there. And she just never came back. So I think that she was just the vehicle to get me over there in order for me to get my taste of production. And so that's how that worked out. I'm glad that I wish that she had, if I thought we would have had a great time, but I'm glad that I followed through on that.
Oh, maybe it was just for you then. Just meant for you.
I would have to say that you're probably right because, you know, yeah, I would have to say you're right.
So,
Yeah.
when you left Time Warner, did you get into working for yourself? Is that when you met Dr. Stacy, like right after that?
Oh no, it was years. Time Warner was back in the 90s. And then I went from Time Warner to freelancing, doing some jobs for Time Warner and then doing my own stuff. And then I moved into producing radio. I produced a radio program back then before the 2000s for about a year or so, and absolutely loved that. And then I didn't meet Dr. Stacy until 2015 when Blab and Periscope came about. And that was awesome because I ended up, when I met her, it was really just about helping out. I was like, hey, welcome to Blab, this, that, and the other. And I saw that she needed some help on some things. And so I was like, oh, you should try this out, try this out. And then we ended up hitting it off, becoming friends. And then, of course, my children, they knew her from the time that they were very young. So they just know her as Aunt Stacy. But yeah, it's amazing how you can forge friendships online like that.
Like that. Me knowing you, never met you in person, but it's nice that I get to talk to you. You're on the other side of the country.
Did I lose you? Okay, you're muted. You're muted, Erica.
Sorry. I was just so happy to see that you came back.
Oh,
My screen went white and you were gone. I was like, oh no. So I'm just happy to see you now.
Right. Right.
Okay. So with mastering your media, you do
Mhm.
events, you do podcasts, you have a radio show, you do Clubhouse. Do you
Mhm.
have a favorite? Like of which media part is like your absolute favorite?
No, I mean, I do enjoy the radio. I do enjoy that, the live aspect of it, and having this time when it's like, okay, tune in. I love the podcast as well because, my whole thing is repurposing and not letting the thing that you do be one and done.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so I love the podcast that we now have launched that was launched on the 1st of February. But I would have to say what I love the absolute most is the interviews that I get to do. I get so many interesting people. We get so many interesting people that come through that we interview. We've got a lineup that is just absolutely crazy. We've got, I think, like some 130 or 40 people in the lineup that we have to get through. And so it's been a pleasure hearing everybody's stories and the way that they're impacting the world. I this right here, I would have to say is like my dream project because I get to share people's stories. I get to ask them questions and I get to make those type of connections. I see Harry's doing the same thing. And, just the volley that we're able to do in the show and the way that the guests, how they feel very supported and heard. I think that
Yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah. So
I
I
like
don't
that.
know that I have a preference. I think each one I like it for what it does or love it for what it does. I don't know if I would choose one over the other per se.
I can understand that. Um, what I like about some of the things you do is that you not only work by yourself on all your projects, sometimes you have partners like Harry, the big dog Jamerson, working with your kids or working with El Kersey of Lux Maverick.
Mhm.
How do you know when to partner?
You know, that's a good question. I like to look at it from the standpoint of can we connect? Do we enjoy each other's space? That's important because I have worked with folks that I did not enjoy their space. And I made a promise to myself, yeah, and God willing, I'll be able to keep that promise. But that really is now in God's court because sometimes the assignment is that you are to work with just whoever he puts in front of you and you got to just roll with it. And then those are the times where I realize, it's probably something that I need to grow through. But for me, it is, at least at this point in my life, it is, are they in alignment with what I ultimately want to accomplish? I've got a mission to publish media that is transformational, solution based. And so when I find folks who are on that same vein, that's the first indicator that there may be a fit. Next thing is their project or is the project that I'm working on something that, we can kind of work together? And do I bring something to the table and do they bring something to the table that, will make this exponentially better? And yeah, so those are the things, humor. I love people with sense of humor, know what they're doing, um, enjoy the space in the company, and that we can kind of talk and it kind of get lost in the time. Then I know,
Mhm.
okay, that's a good fit. If it's adversarial, I don't like that. You know, life's too short to have adversaries in your space like that. So yeah, yeah, I think that
I've
that's
always I've heard that you should know your competition, but and if you don't believe you have competition, then you're like not really paying attention. But at the same time, I know all of these people that do what we do, and I consider them to be friends. I consider them to be partners or people who I can collaborate with. I don't
right.
really see how you said adversaries. I mean, the event business is like a multi-trillion-dollar business. I don't think I can be able to say it's all for me.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I've heard for years when folks say, your competitors, when you do your SWOT and all that. Uh, and I don't know that when you are really in your zone, I don't believe that you have competitors in that space. I think that when you are operating as a commodity, then that's when you will find competitors because you're all at a race to the bottom. But
Oh,
when your whole focus is on, I am going to walk in everything that God has created me to do. I'm going to just really drill down and get to that core place in me. And you're going to move on that. I don't think that is a space where competition exists. Yeah. I don't think that there is a thing as competition when you're in that space at all.
I understand that. I like that. You know, in the description of this conversation that you have, I wrote that it's possible that we know what to do and how to do it, but our messages just aren't landing with our target audience.
Mhm.
So, one of my favorite things about you is that you're a great copywriter. Like, I'm thinking, how can you be at such a high level in working with a lot of people? I'm thinking your vocabulary would change because mine does. And I can't figure out how to get back to where I was before I started, the curse of knowledge, as you will.
Right.
How are you great at copy? How do you get back to the beginning?
I think that comes down to really understanding what you ultimately want to achieve. Sometimes I think that, and granted, there are structures and frameworks for copywriting, and I don't necessarily use them, even though they happen. And I think copy, like marketing, like so many things, there are folks who organically do it and things just work. And
Mhm.
then there are some great marketers who observe that and break it down into structures and systems. And when you could break down a thing that works, then you could understand the mechanism. So for me, I observe a lot and I always ask the question, are these words or the way in which these words are being put together, is it true to the ultimate desired outcome? And if it is, then great, we can go with the words. If it's not, we probably are going to need to adjust. And so I look at it from that standpoint. And I think that that may be the key is that I'm asking, are you authentic to your message? And if so, then let's run with that, put it out there, and then let's tweak as we need to. But ideally, we want you to be as authentic. I want you to be as authentic to your marketplace as possible. And that way, when they come in your doors, they don't have to do a double take because you got them in on one means and it sounded great, but you can't deliver on that because it wasn't ultimately you or your company structure.
Mhm.
So understanding what are your pillars, what's your impact, who are you reaching? Let's talk to them.
You have spoke to me once before about having your pillars. Where did that come from? Because I think it's a really great idea. I think it's a really good thing to have and to use to
Mhm,
put into practice.
mhm.
I don't want to say preach on, but it's something that I now know that I should have and be using. So, how did you come up with that?
Well, it's not unique to me. I didn't come up with it. Pillars are really like your principles, things that you prop your business up on or your life. I mean, we all have pillars in our life as well. And so when you know that these are the standards that my business runs on, it may be authenticity. I mean, mine is authenticity, your story. Story to me is pretty much everything. And if I am not asking the question, okay, well, where's the story in that? Then I'm probably off of my game. So you've got to look at what naturally works in your business. Like when you set your business up, when you said, okay, I got to start this business, Did you just start it, or did you start it because there was a reason why you were starting it? Like for my solutions, if I'm providing solutions, then I'm on target. If I am creating a vehicle for transformation, I'm on target. If I am facilitating your telling your story to the different layers of your marketplace, I'm on target. Okay. If I'm being authentic and challenging you to be authentic in what you do, I'm on target. Because ultimately, like if I were to bundle it all up, it comes down to truth. What is the truth about what you're doing? And where's the integrity in what you're doing? Because if you know that's where you are, you never have to remember what you're going to say and what you're going to do. You're going to exude it.
Mm-hmm.
So my aim is when I work with clients is to challenge them to exude who they are. And when things show up that belie that is a contradiction to that, I ask the question, okay, what is this? You said this, you do this, but you just did this. How does that line up with who you are as a person, who you are as a business? How does that line up with your values? Because if you're in contradiction to your own values, you're going to have problems. It's kind of like the scripture that says that a house divided can't stand, it'll fall. So my thing is to make sure I remove division within your organization by having you step up to the plate and be authentic to who you say you are and what you say you're here to do. So the
Understand
copy
that.
has to reflect that.
Say it one more time. I didn't hear you.
I said, so the copy has to reflect that. Everything that we do has to line up with that. It's all about the alignment of that. And once you're solid on that, you're able to relay that information in a way where folks say, oh my gosh, there's something about that I believe, and I'm drawn to it now. When you are aligned, it's like you put everything together and you become the magnet for your business. Now, all of those who are designed to do business with you, they just start to attract to you as you are marketing. You're like, I'm here. And they're like, oh my gosh, I've been looking for you. You're like, yeah, I know, I'm here. Come on. And they come on over to you.
I like that. I have a saying, when we know what we want from ourselves, we'll then know what we want to ask for from others.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
now I got to tell you, when I'm on a webinar or at a live event, I hate the stories. I absolutely hate the stories. I wish that we could just fast forward and then get to the point. But I have attended one of your events. I've been to a talk where you spoke on stage. You did basically a master class for Virtual Summiteers Mastermind Group.
Mhm.
Everyone was interested. I've had people come to the mastermind and tell me the best part of the mastermind is that you were there. You tell great stories that happen to have something to do with the subject matter. How do you do that?
Again, it comes down to knowing what is relevant. Like, if you're going to just tell a story because they say insert story here, that's already a problem. Okay. And I think a lot of times when we approach things formulaically, where okay, I know in the framework, this is how it has to go, but there's so many other things that have to go along with that framework. Framework is not designed to be so rigid that you cannot vary from it. Framework is just a model, and you still have to pay attention to who's on the other side of that framework. It's kind of like if I am talking to you and I start to say something and I see you do one of these numbers or glaze over, I've got to be able to read what's happening so that I can make a pivot, whether it is a break, in that continuity to reset everything, or a simple question. Okay, I'll give you a great example. I was asked to lecture, to take over this professor's class years ago at a college up here. And I over prepared for it because I'm like, okay, oh my gosh, I need to make sure that I have every answer to every question that could possibly be asked on this subject matter known to man. So I went in there over prepared. And I got up there and I started pontificating. It was crazy. And I'm sitting there and I'm just talking and I'm seeing their eyes glaze over. And it's like, okay, what are we doing here? And we've got, I think it was a 2 hour class. And 20 minutes in, I was sitting there and I was freaking out internally because I'm like, I'm dying up here. There's no connection. And I didn't know what to do. So my sister happened to be attending the lecture and she came there for support. God bless her. Katie, I love you. And so she ended up, like I said to them, excuse me one moment. So I'm thinking like, okay, I'm going to walk out of this lecture hall right now because I got to catch myself. At this point, I'm like just losing it. So I said, okay, I'll be right back. I walk out the door and I give Katie like the eye, like, help. So she walks out behind me and she's like, okay, what's going on, Jason? I said, I'm dying in there. I don't know what I'm saying. I mean, I'm not connecting with anybody. I just don't know what to do. She says, Jason, relax. They came to hear you talk. You're going to do a great job. Just chill out. I was like, okay. So she says, do you want some water? I was like, yeah, get some water. This was the first experience that I had where I understood the power of authenticity. Because when I walked back in, I didn't go back in trying to get back on a pedestal that I thought they had me on. They didn't. I went back in there, right? Wink. I went back in there and I said, okay, let me kind of explain some things here. I said, I have no idea what you all want to know. I kind of feel like I'm not connecting. And so I need you to help me out here. I need you to ask me some questions or because I need to know where do I need to like plug this information in. And they're like, oh, first question. I was like, oh yeah, we were on. And then the class, I mean, it just came to life so deeply that we ended up running over because they were still asking questions and dialoguing and engaging. That taught me a lesson. First, honesty is so important because nobody expected me to know exactly and be the soothsayer up there, go up there, I know what you're going to say before you even say it. They just expected me to come in there and engage and connect. And so when I took myself off of the proverbial pedestal and like, look, I have no idea what you want to know. Here's what the deal is. This is where I'm coming from. How can I help? That shifted everything. And so now when I do events and things like that, I come at it from that perspective. I don't know what you want to know. I have an idea of what you may need to know, but if you don't know that you need to know it and you don't have those questions formulated, my job is to facilitate the space so that you can ask the right questions to get the answers that you need that are going to give you a transformation or solution. So I approach it from that standpoint now is that when you tell a story, if you can connect the dots with that story and you could let them know, I'm here for you. I'm not here to talk at you. I'm here to connect. Then that levels the playing field and you're no longer, this authority. You're the peer who happens to just know something. And now you are approachable. So I would say that the stories that I share, they tend to have happened to me in life. Uh, in other senses, they could otherwise be embarrassing because most of the time, prior to my being able to tell the story, I was embarrassed by it. But that embarrassing moment is probably the realest that we could ever get because then what happens is that you immediately become relatable. Folks understand, oh my gosh, okay, so you didn't always have it together. You didn't always know how to tell a story or whatever. Like you experience real human things. It's like, yeah, okay, now I can approach you. Because you're not going to make me feel stupid now by asking you a question. See? So yeah, I would say that, I tend to feel out the audience. And then the story I can't even say that I picked the story. It just kind of pops up. I'm like, oh yeah, you know what? This happened at this time. And then I'm off to the story.
Okay. Well, I gotta say, Mastering Your Media, it's Tuesdays, 6 p.m. my time, Eastern time. I don't know what time it is in Pacific Standard.
3 p.m. Pacific,
Yep.
5 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Mountain, and 11 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, British Standard
I
Time.
like that you know your time. But
Mhm.
I gotta say, you're not interacting with an audience, but I still feel included. Sometimes I'm talking to you knowing that you can't hear me, knowing that it's been recorded a few days ago, but I'm still
Right.
talking to you. So much so that I have to go in the comments and it's like, hey, you don't like Red Velvet? Something like
Right.
that. But I feel the need to put in my 2 cents anyway. So
Love
I,
it.
I like that. I know that you're not talking to me. I know I'm not a part of the conversation, but I love that I get to listen in on the conversation.
Hmm.
And when you and Harry interviewed me to be on your show,
It was so fun.
sometimes I go off on a tangent. Sometimes I just assumed everyone knows what I'm talking about, but I love that you guys stopped me and explained what I was talking about because I just keep going.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I love the interaction that you guys have, and I don't know how you guys know when people don't know what I'm talking about because I do that a lot and I have no clue. But I like that you guys noticed that about me and other people. It was like
You
you
know,
stop and explain things.
yeah, I have to say that, and this is where that collaboration between Harry the Big Dog, Jameson, and myself, where that comes in because we approach things from different vantage points. And because of that, Harry is masterful in asking those questions that weren't asked and digging a little deeper or clarifying certain things. It's like we do a really good volley, and that has really been a blessing. Just for one, to have a friend in that co-pilot seat, and one who has fun. Harry himself is a techie in his own right. He's one of my go-to people when I run into tech challenges. So I'm like, okay, bro, got this going on. What do I need to do? And so we kind of have an idea of ultimately what we want the show to do. So the questions that come up, that is always going to move the show in that direction. If the idea is that we want folks to have a transformation or a solution or some actionable steps, then those questions are going to come up until we get to that piece to where there's the action right there or there's the transformation right there. So I think that that's probably what happened there is that, if he didn't hear that or if I didn't hear that, that's where that question or the direction of the conversation is going to move it to.
I like that. I want to go back to your time at Time Warner and the time you became a freelancer. How
Mhm.
did you know it was time to go out on your own? How did you
I
know
had
you wanted to
no
be?
idea. I had no idea. At a certain point, I was no longer working there. Okay, so when I was at Time Warner, I covered a few different responsibilities. For one, my boss at the time before she left, she was the program director. When she left, she went to go to the marketing department. When they did not finish her transition over there, she's like, all right, I'm out. She said, Jason, I think you should apply for this job. So I applied for the job. She's like, I mean, you know the stuff. I trained you. I was working on the database and I used to be responsible for scheduling 1,500 or so of the producers that came through there. I was over the PEGL channels, that's public, educational, government, and least access. And then when I was operating as an intern, I was crewing shows. So we had 2 to 3 live shows a week. We had then the regular pre-tape shows, and then we had the ENG or EFP, which is the electronic news gathering or electronic field productions. And so all of that was kind of like all thrown into the big mix. So at the point that I was no longer working there, when I left their employ, that was shortly after, I applied for the job, didn't get the job, but I did end up training the person who was my boss's replacement. Okay. And then they shifted over a lot of what they were doing. They went over to a different database, and I said, so this is going to be kind of interesting. And I let them know, I said, I would be very cautious because with all these switches, if they don't work out, if they don't stay, then you can have all of these all of these files that are moved over to this platform that nobody knows what to do with. So they didn't listen. And unfortunately, 2 months later, she left. And all of the stuff was now over on a different database. And they were trying to figure out, what do we do now? I was already gone at that point, but I was still freelancing. So every now and then I would either do some shows with them or with my program, not the program director, program, was he a manager? The one who used to book the different shows and all that. So we did stuff for like NFL shoots, documentarian work, and all of that. So it was a good mix of a lot of different types of productions. I remember when they were doing the audio book for Star Wars. It was the series that we hadn't heard of at that time. And now this was like over 20 years ago. So yeah, I remember just watching that process. The studio that they built the miniatures for, that was just up the street off of Rennet. I know I'm saying streets that nobody knows what I'm talking about, but they built the actual scaled down version of the spaceship, right, for Star Wars. And so they were showing the different camera moves that they did in order to make it look like it's flying through space. Really awesome stuff. But anyway, so all of that, I didn't know when to leave, but I just at a certain point transitioned out. I still did stuff there, still freelanced, but started doing more of my own things. And then that just kind of one thing led to another. And then I started producing radio and working with other people and all of that. So, yeah, I don't know if that answered your question, but I don't know. It just happened, you know?
I'm thinking it's like, how can you tell somebody you're not good enough for the job? You're just good enough to train somebody to replace you. And then when you left, it's like, hey, we actually really need you. And you're like, nah, you can pay me
You know
freelance
what?
though.
I have a total different perspective on that now. Back then, I didn't. And that was, I think, my immaturity. Now, what I realize is that a good hiring manager, they're going to know what your longevity is. So they may see you and you may be qualified or you may be overqualified for that position. And that may mean this. It could translate out to, I could put you in this position, but I know that you're not going to be here long because you're going to start doing other things. Your interests are going to grow beyond what this job will shackle you to. So you're overqualified because in a minute, someone or something is going to snap you up, and then we're going to be left having to retrain, having to retool, having to redo everything if I plug you into this position that you're not going to be in. So I think that when they are good at what they do, they can see a little bit more of your future and know that this is not long term. And if we're looking for long term, I can't slot you in here. And that's a blessing on both sides because for you, it keeps you from getting shackled into something that you may not know how to break free from. Me, loyalty to a fault. And if I'm in a job, you pretty much have to fire me out of it because, and transitioning out of that and knowing that, you know what, it's time that I transition myself out of this. That's where the growth comes in. So I think that that's really what it gets down to. They kind of have that spidey sense, if you will, like it's not going to be a long term. So let's not expend all of that resource to bring them in if they're not going to stay.
I guess I've never saw it like that. I wonder if that's now a Southern thing in me or a Western thing for you, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think it's the west or south or east or north or whatever. I think it comes down to, you know, when the clearer that you become on what it is that you're here to do, the more unemployable you become.
Ah, that
Unless
makes,
employment is going to help you do what it is that you were designed to do. Anything that conflicts with that, the stronger that gets in you, the more unemployable, or rather, the more undistractible you will become. If the job becomes the distraction that is going to keep you from pursuing what you're supposed to pursue, then it has to go by the wayside, you know? And so if the job is a means to an end and you can understand the strategy behind working that job, and you can make it not take away from, not detract from what you're ultimately here to do, then the job becomes an asset and a silent partner in your business. You just have to understand what side of that ledger that you're on. But
Understand.
I would not look at it as a minus anymore. I would look at it as a plus. Everything works out properly when you are aligning or aligned.
I understand that. One of my another favorite things about you is that you have no time for distractions. You just shoo them away. I have no idea how you do that. I would love to have that superpower. You were writing copy for El Kersey of Lux Maverick, and kids were coming in. People were talking to you via the internet. Other things was going on. No time for it.
Mhm,
Within 5 minutes, you had copy written, and it was great. I'm like, how
mhm.
did you do that?
You know what? And I wish that I could say that that happens all the time. It doesn't. But when I'm in that zone and in that energy, in that space with creative people, and we have something that needs to happen right then,
Mhm,
catch me at the right time in the midst of that, then that's when I focus in and I can get it done.
mhm,
Now, say that that scenario was a different scenario where it's like, okay, well, Jason, sometime within this next few weeks or whatever, yeah, see what you can come up with this. It probably would not have created urgency in my mind, you know, and void of that creative space, it probably would take all of that time, maybe even that time plus some, in order to get it done. So it all comes down to that environment and that space. And it's like, if we can crack into that space right then and there. So because I was in that zone, I was able to just shut everything else down. If I wasn't in that zone, I probably wouldn't have been able to do that. So I like to get into that zone as often as possible.
do you know how do you get there?
Yeah, I mean, if the environment is intense enough and it is free flowing enough, and I can see, okay, actually, I'm glad you're asking this question, because now I'm starting to break this thing down for myself to understand that mechanism. Okay, what I saw that day that we were all together and I was working on that copy, what I saw was, okay, everybody's here, all the pieces are there. I'm not going to have to do this again. So it's not going to be a waste of time or energy or resources, because anybody that I need to ask questions is right in the room. They're virtually here now, so there's no impedance. Now, say that part of the team was not there, and then the copy was going to have to be looked over, and it could take weeks or whatever. Like there's all these pieces that weren't in sync.
Mhm,
That probably would not have been the same result then, because now I'm looking at it as, this is a potential wheel spinner. I may be spinning my wheels right now, and I may do all of this work only for it to be said, yeah, it's not what we're looking for. Try something else. And there's nobody there for me to now get immediate response from. Hey, how about this? Just want to make sure that it's going in the right direction. So without that, I'm like, this could be very expensive time, because I may have to revisit this thing 10, 20 times just because everybody's not synced up. That day, everybody was synced up. So I knew any question I have, I can get the answer right then and there. I can get immediate feedback on, what does this copy look like? How does it impact you? Yeah. So I would say that that's probably the sweet spot right there.
okay. It's like we were playing soccer and our team had just scored a goal right after you finished reading. We're all like, score, go.
Yeah.
So, and it was just so much chaos going around. Like my son's running around yelling, my daughter's running around yelling, your kids were asking you for stuff.
Mhm.
People were talking to the side where Elle was, and it's like, and you still got it done. I was like, that is a superpower that I wish I had.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, you know what? I would say that you do have that because, for one, you are a high energy mother, okay? And by that I mean you've got children who require a certain level of attention that if you weren't already a supermom, and you are, Elle and I have talked about that numerous times behind your back, you wouldn't be able to do the stuff that you do. So yeah, I would take that out of your consciousness that you couldn't do that because you do that quite often throughout the days, plural. So yeah, you have to paint yourself with that same brush. And
Oh,
your children are very active, okay?
yeah,
Just talking to Ian, I mean, that's a bundle of energy right there. Amazing. Awesome. Brilliant.
yeah.
It takes
Have a lot of
some
energy.
yeah, yeah. So it takes some grit for you to be able to do that and do what you do. Absolutely.
Well,
Mhm.
I've almost kept you here about an hour, but I gotta know. You've
Can't
said
believe
it
the
at the
time's gone
beginning.
that fast.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I said, I can't believe the time's gone that fast. That's amazing.
People love hearing what you have to say, especially me. So I gotta ask you, even though I've asked you this again, but I want people to get a grasp on what kind of clients that you look forward to work with, and are you taking on any new people?
You know, the clients that I look for, and this comes down to their level of readiness. Okay. They have to be in that space where they are ready to do the work, tell their story, and connect with their audience and serve them at a level that it's obvious that they are benefiting their marketplace. The clients that I deal with, they understand or are easily taught that you're not just talking to your buyers, you are talking to your whole marketplace, and there's a reason for that. And so they are gearing themselves not to just be transactional, they are gearing themselves to be transformational. And in order to be transformational, you have to consider, all aspects of your marketplace. If you just deal with your buyers, and then you aren't filling your pipeline, you aren't giving your evangelists what they need, you're not giving your community what it needs, you're not giving your team, your admin what they need, you're either going to be doing a lot of heavy lifting by yourself, or you are going to close, or you're going to alienate a lot of people unnecessarily. So my client is the one who realizes that they have to have the conversation for their total marketplace, and then they're going to take their time and develop, bloom that conversation so that they are relevant in their space. They also have opened their business up because they want to make a positive impact in this world, and they want to tell their story because they know that they're not a commodity. They know that they're unique in what they do, and they want to share that with the world so that they can bring value and help others get to where they ultimately want to be. So they facilitate others' transformation as well.
Okay. Do you help your clients find their story?
I do. And it's not hard because we come with our stories. So it's not like we're manufacturing a story. Like, here's a story, take this one, and this will do. That's not it at all. It comes down to, I ask them those core revealing questions. What is it? What is your big why? And in that, that is the first layered question to a multi-layered set of answers that you have to give. Because you may say, oh, it's here to do this, that, and the other. And it's like, really? Is that really what it is? Or is that what you're saying because you have been trained to say that because you think there's something wrong with saying, well, I opened my business to be highly profitable. Okay. So now, what are you bringing to the table that is going to facilitate others getting where they want to go in order for you to now attain the highly profitability. And then why do you want to be highly profitable? Because it's not just because you want to stack and hoard money. That's not it at all. None of us are in this, even those who say, I'm all about the money. Nobody's ever about the money, because the money without the value that is attached to it means nothing. So understanding why are you doing what you're doing? Some, they have not gotten over the fact that they felt irrelevant, or they felt that they did not matter because they grew up in abject poverty, or they saw business from their parents close, or they were fired from a job and they got this vendetta. All of these things come into the mix. So in that initial discovery, we dig in, and then to the point of rawness. And it's like, okay, we're going to leave off right now because you're too raw. So let's kind of take this back up when you heal. So see you next week. And then we dig up some more until we get down to that core thing. Because that core thing is what now develops that light bulb moment. It's like, oh my gosh, I thought all this time I was going for this because of this. I now realize that I want to impact people this way because of this, and this. Now you got your pillars, you got your story, you have your big why. You have the driving force that will keep you going forward. When you don't have that driving force, things happen, and then they can easily knock you off of your path. When you have that, though, nothing knocks you off your path because you understand your big why.
I like that. Like when you get this recording, I hope you clip that, because that was brilliant. That can even be a checklist. I really like that. So I was thinking, we live for so long. Like, how do you find that one story? But you just told me.
And you have to be honest with yourself. We have so many voices that get into our head, and those voices trigger us in certain ways because we are trying to be relevant to others, even strangers, without first being relevant to ourselves. And that's a problem. That's a big major problem. We are trying to keep up with the Joneses. The Jones don't even know how to spell their name. Okay. The Joneses don't know how to keep up with the Joneses. The Joneses aren't even trying to be the Joneses, but we're trying to keep up with them. And for those who don't understand that terminology, because I know that you have an international crowd, keeping up with the Joneses, that statement is saying that you are trying to impress others or trying to live their life.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't understand what they had to do to live their life, what sacrifices that they have made or are making, and where there are holes in what they're doing. So the minute that you look at yourself as high value, that does not need to take a second seat, a back seat to anybody or anything else, and you understand that you are here with a purpose, then your job becomes, how do I discover my purpose? So when things come up, oh, I want to do this, ask yourself why. Why do you want to do this? Well, I want to do this because of this, this, and this. Now, if it's anything that's external because you want to look good, you want to this, that, and the other, you got to scrap that and go back to the drawing board, because the issue now is going to be, it's always somebody else that you are measuring yourself. You're defining yourself by somebody else's standards who's not even relaying those standards to you. So you've got to keep on drilling until you get down to the thing, you know what? I really want to transform people's lives, or whatever that is for you. That is really you. When you say it, you're like, that's it. That's it. That's what it is. That's when you know what it is. And then you could build on that because you found the core.
I believe it. Oh, Jason, let everybody know, what's your favorite social media hangout? What platform or can we find you?
You know what? Right now, I have really been rocking LinkedIn. I've been rocking LinkedIn. And, I'm finding that because there is so many businesses out there that I believe need to get down to that authentic message, I think LinkedIn is the pool to do that in. So I enjoy LinkedIn. I'm finding a lot of great people on there, great contacts. Yeah. And you can actually check out if they go to masteringyour.media. Okay. We're building some things out on that, masteringyour.media. But yeah, on LinkedIn, if you go to linkedin.com/n/the Jason Hodge, then you will be able to connect with me on LinkedIn. But if you go
Gonna
to
try to find.
masteringyour.me, yeah. Say it again, Erica.
I was gonna try to find mastering your dot media
Yeah.
if I can find it right before if I
Mhm.
spell. Ah, it's already up. Hooray. Okay. No,
And so
I
that's our resource page, and we will be building some more things out because there's some new developments, and we've been kind of like keeping things under wraps for a moment, but there's some new developments, some great interviews coming up, great additions to the broadcast. So check us out, masteringyour.media, and let us know if you know somebody who needs to be on there. Okay, because look, we're on a mission to transform the world, and we can't do that without your help. So let us know if you have a story that you know needs to be shared, a business or an entrepreneur, an author, whoever you know that is doing their part to make some transformations and impacts in this world. We want to know about them.
all right.
Erica, thank you
Oh,
for
thank
having me.
you. I appreciate you being here. Like all the stories with value, all the stories that I think that I can implement because I got something out of it. I hope everyone listening got something out of it. Something implement. I can't even say it now. Implementable.
Implementable.
How about that? I don't want to say English is hard, but some words I can't say. Well, thank you, everyone. This is the Jason Hodge. Please find him on LinkedIn. He is definitely worth getting to know. Thank you, Jason. I appreciate you sharing your
Thank
time,
you,
your
Erica.
knowledge, and your energy with us.
I appreciate being here. And you all make sure that you are subscribed to Talk Virtual. It's talk-virtual.com, right?
That's right.
Yes. Yeah, she's got some great stuff here. And behind the scenes, it's just awesome. Glad to be a part of your community, Erica. Looking forward to the next.